What were the facts you learned in school that are no longer true? Story 1. I didn't learn this in school, but I heard it often repeated on things like the Discovery Channel and Animal Planet when I was a kid. I always heard that the Komodo Dragon, the largest living lizard on Earth, was such a successful predator because its mouth was so filthy and septic that the microbes in the saliva would cause fatal infections on its prey. The dragon would track the wounded animal until it eventually collapsed and would eat it. This, as it turns out, is not true, or at the very least, not the whole story. It takes days for microbial infections to begin to show symptoms in an animal as large as, say, a water buffalo, but animals were collapsing hours after being bitten, not days. Microbial infections from their saliva couldn't explain how rapidly these large mammals were being killed. This lie was repeated throughout my childhood, and I even heard it repeated at the San Diego Zoo as recently as last year. As it turns out, Komodo dragons are able to hunt so successfully because their saliva contains venom that they produce from their venom glands. I thought that until this very moment. I never felt so betrayed as when I learned it. Apparently, they didn't even know about the venom glands until 2009, with some evidence of venomous proteins only going back to 2005. Zoologists were pretty surprised to learn this too. For decades, conventional wisdom was that there are only 2 species of venomous lizards, the Gila monster and bearded lizard. Then they started looking for venom proteins in saliva. Turns out, instead of 2 venomous lizards, it's actually more like 1,300. Also, almost all snakes have venom. Story 2. The food pyramid. So I'm not supposed to eat 700,000 calories a day. Okay guys, I meant kilocalories. I didn't even know that was a thing. Seriously, I could never wrap my head around that. 45 to 56 servings of bread a day. Frick's sake. What rubbish food pyramid did your classroom have? Guys, I can't lie, but I've completely forgotten what the food pyramid was. Could someone please enlighten me? Like, I genuinely can't for the life of me remember what the food pyramid was all about. Like, honestly, not a clue. I'm such an idiot. I cannot cope with it, gang. Like, I wish I was one of those smart people that just knew everything. But this is why I've got you guys, yeah? You guys are my friends. You help me learn things, which I love. But yeah, I should probably know this, right? Because, I mean, I'm just being honest. And you guys know me, I'm a bit too honest, and I do not know this. Story 3. You're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go. 80085. That, on the other hand, still holds good. 80085 will be 80085. Ah, I know this one here. Turn it upside down, baby. You got a nice pair of boobs on your screen. No, I'm joking, you don't really. Well, it says boobs. You can't see a pair of boobs, but yeah. Story 4. The Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space. But space is visible from the Great Wall of China. I never understood why people said this. It doesn't make any sense. Because the wall is not wide, it's just long. Right, like if you could see the wall, you'd definitely be able to see highways and stuff. Story 5. The tongue has different taste zones. Oh, I remember that. I tried that myself many times. I was never able to replicate the experiment. Could not imagine back then that there was any chance that information written in a book could be wrong. So I concluded that my tongue is broken, or I don't know how to experiment. Maybe if you tried tasting something other than poo, you'd have got better data. Thanks, filthy stranger. Multiple golds, you mad nutters. I see we found the guy who's still in school. Story 6. Pluto was a planet when I was at school. Of course, Jerry. It's a cold, cold celestial dwarf. Gotta mine that sweet, sweet plutonium. Drill, baby, drill. Okay, gang. Anyone else have absolutely no idea what's going on the past couple seconds? Because I don't. I'm lost. Shock, but I'm lost. What are we even going on about now? Anyone care to show me? Story 7. When I was a kid, we were taught that penguins' feet didn't freeze because of their circulation. Turns out they have antifreeze proteins in their blood that bind to ice crystals and stop them from growing, so their blood stays liquid well below 0 degrees. Source. Worked at a university research centre with a guy that did his PhD in antifreeze proteins. Proteins, not enzymes. Sorry, biochemistry. Does this mean I can put penguin blood in my car? Do it and tell us the results. Story 8. You have to learn in cursive writing. Higher schooling will not accept anything that isn't cursive. Yes, I remember teachers racing students in handwriting. Teachers would write the alphabet in cursive and students would do it in print. This was the only argument they used as to why cursive was better. Then high school came and no one wrote in cursive and everything we handed in had to be typed. Joke's on them. I combine cursive and print when I write. Sometimes even I can't read what I wrote. And here I am grading papers that are barely legible because of poor handwriting. Screw cursive, teach kids some frickin' penmanship for crying out loud. Just needed to vent. Just to add to this is a college level, USA. Okay, I know most of you type lab reports and I agree with you. However, these are not reports in the sense of writing your procedure out. These reports are fill in the blank like this example here. I was definitely not expecting this to blow up like this, so I should clarify a few things here. I'm a TA for a 100-level engineering class. These labs are completely ridiculous. Unfortunately, I have no control over that. And after reading a lot of what you've all said, pen and paper has somewhat lost its place now that everything's going digital. I would still argue that good penmanship is still needed in certain jobs, and it simply makes life a little easier for those who have to read. With that said, my signatures still look like chicken scratch, and no two signatures are ever the same. Guys, I don't know how relevant this is, so sorry, but do you remember in school, yeah? Well, I think this was like primary school, when our handwriting had to be good enough to get onto pen. Do you remember? And then the day we were able to get onto the pen, it was like the best day of our lives. We were boasting that we were able to write in pen. But they weren't like ballpoint pens, were they? They were like special pens. Do you remember? What pens were they? Also, I have no idea what cursive writing is, but it does ring a bell, so I must kind of know. I just can't remember. So can anyone help me here? What is cursive writing? Story 9. There's a country called Czech Slovakia. This will always remain stuck in my head till the day I die, and yet so much of it is out of date. Yeah, I am aware that some of it's straight up wrong. They played a bit fast and loose to get the song to fit the tune. My point was more that a number of valid mentions it makes are out of date, and it misses a number of new countries. Also, it's a catchy tune, so there's that. I don't even have to click that. I know that's Yakko Warner singing the country song. Yes, I remember this so vividly. Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey, and Greece. The memories. Story 10. That two blue-eyed parents can't have a brown-eyed child. Apparently, not only is this pure bullshark, the genetics of eye colour is more complex than that. It led to a lot of kids being rejected by their real fathers before DNA testing became available. My son was taught that you had to have the same blood type as one of your parents. He told his teacher that his dad is O+. I'm A+, and yet he's O-. And the teacher gave him a funny look and told him that maybe we should have a talk. He came home in a panic and asked if he was the result of an affair. I was so fuming. Of course I had to be sarcastic about it. You figured it out. Dad cheated on me and got pregnant, which is the only way this could happen because you look just freaking like him. He calmed down, did a bit of research, and then apologised. Sounds to me like his teacher's the one who owed you an apology. Teachers deserve a hell of a lot of latitude when it comes to matching up with their education with what parents want. But insinuating that a kid might be the result of extramarital activities is pretty freaking inappropriate. Christ, I hope you had a talk with that teacher. Jeez, Louise. That teacher needs to be careful, okay? See, this is the thing. As a teacher, you must have to be so careful what you say to these children because they will literally take it and they will sit on it and obsess over it. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just an example. See, I could not be a teacher. They have so much pressure on their backs. Like, it's just not for me. Not for me. Do you know what I mean, guys? Like, if you're a teacher, please just tell the rest of us how hard it is because I bet you it is so difficult and I don't really like kids that much either, so couldn't think of anything worse. Can't lie. Story 11. I was taught in grade school that we had to know the metric system because the United States was going to adopt it, like any day now, for sure. That was about 30 years ago. The US is moving towards the metric system, inch by inch. I mean, the US government passed the Metric Conversion Act in 1975 that officially made the metric system the preferred way to measure things. The change just hasn't been happening in everyday life. Look, if we adopted the metric system, when the temp hit 100 degrees, we would all die. Our lakes will boil. Do you want that? No, Karen, I'm sure we do not want that. Moving on. Story 12. Christopher Columbus was the first dude to discover America and tried to bargain but couldn't work it out because of cultural differences. In grade school during the 70s, we were also taught that he sailed west to prove the world was round. We were taught that in the 2000s as well. What a load of rubbish. I have a graduate-level college textbook for teachers that also states the same thing. It was treated as fact. The book was published in 2015. Story 13. I don't know how common this is, but if the Earth were 1 centimetre closer to the sun, we would be burned. 1 centimetre further from the sun, we'd be frozen. No, we wouldn't. The distance is changing all the time during a year. No one better jump then. Forget jumping. If you're a couple of inches shorter or taller than your friend, at least one of you is fricked. Elliptical orbit. Interesting. Not sure if the flat earthers will agree, though. Yeah, guys. I think we all know, I'm dumb by this point, so These conversations they're just not clicking with me. I actually have no idea what we're talking about. I can't lie. Geography, history, science, not my strongest points. And most of these facts come under one of those topics. So if you do hear from me, it's probably just going to be a load of rubbish. And you're probably going to get annoyed, wondering why I'm so dumb. But yeah, apologies on my behalf. I should have listened more in class. Moving on. Story 14. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Nope, just a slogan paid for by Kellogg's. To be clear, I don't think you should skip breakfast or that breakfast is unimportant. To think that would be just stupid. However, it should be known that this was a paid slogan to sell breakfast foods, not based on any facts at the time. It's probably best to eat 6 to 8 small meals of a variety of types of sources. None of them being particularly important, but important as a whole. Fixed auto-corrected word. What? Also, John Harvey Kellogg invented cornflakes because he believed that eating bland food would stop people from masturbating. And now frosted flakes are a thing. Take that, you self-flagellating Calvinistic poo. I jizz uncontrollably after eating a hearty bowl of frosted flakes and 7 other breakfast foods all by myself. They're more than good. They're great. Wow. Who would have thought it'd be about spunk at the breakfast table? Maybe now my dad can be proud of me, but I wouldn't count on it. Trust me, you don't want to get your hopes up of him getting his hopes up about me. I know from experience. Anyway, don't fail your finals or life in general. Have a nice day. Actually, guys, apparently breakfast isn't all that good for you because it spikes your insulin levels. But I might be wrong, I'm not entirely sure. But, I mean, apparently, again, fasting is so good for your body. It's like an internal reset. Like it flushes all of the bad toxins away. And gives your body time to like regenerate new cells and you'll be like the best version of yourself. So I'm genuinely thinking about fasting, but then I do love food. Like I can't breathe without 3 meals a day. And I don't know if you can even drink water either. So, I mean, I would definitely struggle, but I would like to give it a try. Anyone else? Has anyone done this before? Story 15. That fat is the biggest cause of heart disease. Sugar companies paid off scientists to focus the blame off sugar and push it onto fat. I'm not saying go out and eat bacon, sausages, and steak for every meal. I'm not saying you can never eat sugar. I'm just saying we used to demonetize all fats, saying they led to heart disease, when we know now there are good heart-healthy fats. We also went through a period where reduced fat foods were considered healthier, even though they had extra sugar to compensate for the lack of taste. I'm not your dietitian nor your cardiologist, I'm just noting there seems to have a shift in the tide on our views of sugars and fats. Oh right, I remember that. We were always cooking things on pig fat. Then they came with animal fat is unhealthy. We half ignored that as a family, and some years later, actually vegetable oil is worse than pig fat. Go figure. Basically the exact concept behind all low-fat or zero-fat foods that are all over the place. People are slowly starting to realise that fat isn't bad for you, but rather sugar is the main issue. The problem is actually the other way around, okay? Low-fat products are a problem because they would taste like bum if the lack of fat wasn't often compensated for by tons of sugar. Story 16. In psychology class, we learned about the bystander effect in the Kitty Jevani's story where apparently she was raped and killed. She cried for help, but her neighbours in the building apparently assumed someone else was going to help her. Turns out, the story was embellished by a reporter so that it sounded like no one did help her, but her neighbours actually helped and she died on the way to the hospital. The bystander effect is still a thing, right? Only the example doesn't hold up. Actually, the story was embellished by the police because several neighbours said they did call the police and no one responded. So the police defended themselves with an aggressive, "No one called the police" media push, which was picked up in a big way by the New York Times. But the good news is that the aggressive media coverage of this story, and resulting public outrage, led to the establishment of the nationwide 911 emergency phone system. Uh-oh, gang, I'm gonna need help here. What's the bystander effect? Genuinely no idea, but I really want to know. And I'm not going to Google it, so I'm just going to wait for my fellow friends to help me out in the comments here. So please do let me know, because I honestly have no idea. But I feel like I should know these things. Like, is this just general knowledge, guys? Or are you taught these things? That's what I need to know, because did I go to a rubbish school, or am I genuinely just, like, not very mentally capable? Story 17. There are 5 senses. I actually am getting my PhD in neural engineering, and it blew my mind when I started learning of all the other ones. Now, it totally bugs me that we were ever taught it. Strictly speaking, there are dozens of senses, which lead to multiple perceptions of being. I think the general subject is quite complicated though, and probably prudent to hold off trying to distinguish the two children. I can't believe how much this is blown up. The biggest reason I love this community is for its curiosity. Seriously, stop apologizing for asking questions. Instead, be proud of your questions. As a scientist, I'm 100% dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, so you don't need to apologize for stupid questions before you ask. There's no such thing. Could you try and list them, from most important to least preferably? I don't think there is much agreement on exactly how many senses there are, but some of the most commonly agreed upon senses that I've heard of: sense of temperature, sense of bodily orientation, sense of pressure, sense of thirst and hunger, sense of balance and exhilaration, and sense of pain, etc. To the people trying to poke holes in this and saying this is just touch over and over again, I don't know, dude, just parroting rubbish, I read. Hey, just a heads up. If you're thinking of posting that these are just a subset of touch and don't deserve to be their own sense, 50 people beat you to the punch. Take is no longer hot. Grammatical errors are intentional, don't worry about it. Story 18. There's a bunch of stuff we learned in school that science has since moved on from. A brontosaurus is no longer a thing. It's now called an apatosaurus. Britain no longer has a desert. It was Dungeness, it's since reclassified. Panda bears were declassified as bears and are now reclassified as bears. Even the way dinosaurs are depicted has changed. Look at velociraptors in Jurassic Park to now have feathers. Actually, the brontosaurus is back. New discoveries have led to paleontologists realizing that the brontosaurus is a separate species from the apatosaurus. Yay, brontosaurus is my favorite. All the brontosaurus and dinosaur love, yay. Story 19. Most Tyrannosaurus were completely feathered and their posture was really long and sprinty. At least that's what we can believe now after more study. At the time I was to believe that they were like upright iguanas with big teeth. I didn't want to reply to all 70 of you, so I said Tyrannosaurus, but T-Rex was the obvious notable exception. There were other Tyrannosaurs besides Rex. And we can believe the giant chicken theory right up until someone discovers more evidence that shows they were actually covered in razor wire and had biomechanical implants. Just the ones we'll dig up after World War IV. I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War V will be fought with razor-wire dinosaurs with biomechanical implants. Einstein. You lot are all too dang smart for me, 'cause I ain't got a darn clue what's going on, boys. All I know is, I hope there isn't a World War III. What's everyone's opinions on that? Because I'm hearing crazy things all the time at the minute. Story 20. 1. Pluto is the 9th and last planet in the solar system. 2. The atom is indivisible. 3. I will be successful if I get an A in every class. They first split the atom in 1917. Apparently my school only heard about it in 2004. Story 21. My early teachers always said that the pilgrims and the priests got along and had a happy Thanksgiving, always joyous. But when I got to 4th grade, my teacher basically said, everything you know about Thanksgiving is a lie. And sadly, we learned the truth. At least you were taught that in grade 4. My grade 12 Canadian history class still taught that when the settlers came, that everything was joyous. And the fur trade was a turn-of-the-century operation. Took an Aboriginal studies class in university, and I was in shock. One of my favourite high school teachers either couldn't at the time or failed to even address the real reason behind reserves. Story 22. You only lose 2 teaspoons of blood during a period. Bullshark. Yes, I was taught this in nursing school. Boy, was I surprised when I started using a menstrual cup. One of the reasons I started using a menstrual cup was because my doctor wouldn't believe me when I said I bled so much. I wanted to be able to quantify it. It turns out I was losing anywhere from 200 mils to 300 mils of blood per period. That is only counting cups I completely fill, not the partially filled ones, or the overflow amount I lose directly into the toilet or leaked out onto the pad. Okay, let me tell you one thing now, guys and girls. If we lose 2 teaspoons of blood during our period, my name's Ben, or Billy, or Bobby, because that is not true. I lose enough to fill up 4 pint glasses, and I'm telling you now, alright? I don't care what anyone says. No doctor, no nurse, no professional in the field. That is not true. I'm telling you now. Also, guys, so sorry if that was a bit too much information. I think I overshare sometimes. Story 23. You're only allowed to use 1 source from the internet in your paper. The rest needs to come from books. And God forbid someone else beat you to that book you needed. You might not see it for 2 weeks. Story 24. I before E except after C. But I have weird beige neighbours. The full phrase is I before E except after C, or when sounded like A, as in neighbour and way. But yeah, weird is weird. Forfeit the rule. Story 25. In Norway, we learned that the US had 52 states because of a book printing error. There are 52 states when you include the jokers. Book printing error. Please tell me this was on purpose. In Norwegian, combination words like that are written without any spaces, so it might have been an honest mistake. Story 26. In 3rd grade, I was taught that Antarctica was the 2nd largest continent because it looked that way on a map. I honestly don't know if my teacher actually believed that or if she was just fricking with us. Story 27. That lemmings don't actually follow each other robotically, even to the point they'll walk off cliffs to their deaths. This fact was actually staged for a Walt Disney documentary back in the 60s or so. Story 28. I was taught our 16th president was Jefferson Davis and that it wasn't a civil war because civil war isn't between 2 separate countries. This was in 5th grade in Alabama. I believe it was the individual teacher who taught this, not the school system. However, the school community did have a few traditions honouring the Confederacy examples, including local hotels on mobile bays, firing a Confederate cannon into the bay once a week for the fallen Union/Confederate soldiers who died at the bay while dressed in grey, and a handful of memorials. That doesn't make sense. Much like Alabama, if Jefferson Davis was the president, he was the first president of the Confederacy, not the 17th president of the US. Make up your mind. It was either one country or 2. Story 29. High school. No one will accept work cited from Google. College. No one will accept work cited from Wikipedia. Boss. I dunno, just Google, Wiki, YouTube, that rubbish. All the people focusing on the citation aspect of this post. Any boss that said, just Google that rubbish, obviously is not looking for the cure to cancer. This post was about the legitimacy of the tools available to do research. Okay, citing Google is like citing a library. You might as well say that you got the information from Earth. At least cite the website that Google got you to. Okay, gang, this reminds me of the worst thing that I had to do in uni when writing essays. Harvard referencing. Guys, you must have heard of that. It was the hardest thing ever. I'm not joking. It took me, 3 years that I was there to actually grasp what on earth was going on with it. In the end, I pretty much just used Google and I was like, cite this for me because I have no idea what I'm doing here. But citing, it's so boring. Like, who cares where I got the information from? Do you know what I mean? Obviously my lecturer, but yeah, moving on. Story 30. Drink 8 glasses of water a day. Yeah, I remember this. Ever since I started drinking 8 glasses of whiskey instead, everything's been a lot better, really. Actually, I would love to know how much water we're supposed to drink in a day. Like, genuinely, as a fact, how many pints of water are we supposed to drink in a day? I drink a lot of water, I really do. So I'm probably close to it, or maybe even over. But I know it's quite a lot, so I would love to know. Cheese, if you're listening, please find out for me how many pints of water we're supposed to drink. Story 31. When I was in kindergarten, we sat in a circle, and one at a time we'd enter the circle and act like our favourite animal, and the others had to guess what we were. My favourite animal was a cheetah, so I crawled swiftly across the floor. No one could guess it, so after a few minutes and repeated all 4 sprints, my teacher, who wasn't very nice to me, said, I noticed you're moving very fast. A leopard? To which I replied, no, a cheetah is the fastest. She insisted she was right and I was wrong and never corrected herself. 2 years later, I had her as a teacher again because we had a very large 2nd grade class, and after some unrelated trouble, my parents confronted her with this story at a parent-teacher conference. She denied it and insisted, we agree on that. This taught me everything I'd ever need to know about facts and authority figures. Story 32. My 8th grade biology teacher told us that only identical twins were possible and that there was no scientific possibility for identical triplets, quints, etc. Imagine my surprise many years later when I discovered this was a blatant lie. I'm still confused as to how she could have possibly believed that, but then I remember that was before the internet. Story 33. The rainforest at current rate of consumption will be gone by 1996. This was in my middle school books, and I was in middle school in 2003. This is not a political goddamn lefties in their scare tactic money-grabbing global warming hoo-ha statement. Mora wish my middle school replaced their science books more than once per decade. Story 34. Negative numbers. For 4 years of elementary school, I'm told that you can't subtract 8 from 7, and so the problem is unsolvable. In 5th grade, the answer is suddenly -1. Why wait 5 years to reveal that? Can students under 5th grade not handle the concept of negative numbers? I hated math after that and wondered what else would just be suddenly changed on me. Oh, honestly, you and me both. There was nothing I hated more in school than maths. I could just never get the hang of it. I didn't actually get the grades for maths in the end, and I was supposed to study it at college to get a C, but I didn't. I just couldn't do it, guys. I still don't know how to add up properly. Honestly, it's my worst topic. And it's just so boring as well, isn't it? But we do have to use it a lot in our lives, so one day I might grasp it, but I'll keep you updated. Story 35. that there are only 3 states of matter: California, New York, and Texas. I'm an idiot. I misread what he said. Story 36. Polar bears stayed warm because their fur was fiber optic and absorbed heat from the sun. So if enough polar bears stood next to each other, I'd finally have fast fiber internet. Fiber. Story 37. That glass is a liquid. This is apparently not true, but I believed it for a long time because things that I learned as a child somehow stick around as truths way more easily in my mind. Apparently it is sort of true anyway. As I've understood, most consider glass to be somewhere between a solid and a liquid fluid. Amorphous solid is the term I learned today. It does not have the crystal structure of a solid, but when cooled down, it's practically a solid as it does not flow. The old windows that are thicker at the bottom are not caused by the flowing of glass, but it's simply the way they were produced that caused this. Comments don't fully agree on all the details. It's an interesting subject, but most seem to assure me that it is solid. And yes, I do realise that any substance can be liquid, solid, or gas, etc., depending on temperature. Okay, guys, I think we need one of our top-class nerds to tell us. Is this true, or is it not true? Someone who's smart, just give us a hint at least. Please. Story 38. That I'll use all of my math knowledge in my job doing the calculation by hand and without a calculator. Mechanical engineer and found out that they have programs to do the calculations for you, so you can not spend all your time doing long division. Story 39. Columbus was a good person. Story 40. You need to learn how to do long-form math. You won't have a calculator with you all of the time, which I type into my little handheld supercomputer. Yeah, this is true. I'd be nowhere without the calculator on my phone, honestly. My phone's pretty much my brain now, I can't lie. Everything, like my notes, is just my brain on a page, I can't lie. Anyone else? Like, I think if someone was to ever actually get hold of my phone and read my notes, they'd be like, you are a genuine lunatic. Like, you need to be sectioned. Story 41. A bit beside the point, but one teacher asked what colour the hair of ice bears, polar bear, is. Everyone answered white, except for me saying it was transparent. The teacher said that that was the stupidest thing she'd ever heard and put that one off. Not the first time I knew better and got shut off by some stupid teacher. To clear up some confusion going on here, I called it ice bear. The correct term is polar bear. Sorry that some of you have to get so mad for using a wrong term. Thanks though to all the people enjoying the word ice bear. A polar bear's coat has 2 layers of hair. An outer layer made up of long 5 to 15 centimetre guard hairs and a thick undercoat made up of shorter hair. These guard hairs are mostly transparent or clear, but thanks to some special characteristics that work to create cool optical tricks, these hairs appear white. Story 42. Human blood is blue until it's oxygenated. BC and AD are before Christ and after death, and the years in between weren't recorded. Technically, these were never true, though. Story 43. I'm still in school and so many things have already changed. Pluto used to be a planet, the food pyramid used to be valid, and you can't start a sentence with the word but. That's actually one of the few things I remembered from school, that you can't start a sentence with the word but. Never done that. Never will do it. It's just a fact in my brain. Story 44. You're born with a set number of brain cells, and that number can only diminish throughout your life. Anti-alcohol. I remember a version of that. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos coming daily.